Have you ever felt such intense rage for no reason? You'll be alone and you'll be doing nothing, and suddenly this uncompromising hate just grips you. Bad tempers, mood swings, grumpy, all words we use to explain away this deep hatred. I have never felt like this. In fact, it is only recently that I feel I understand why. I wrote recently about a diary entry that my great aunt made about an experience of the paranormal that she had. This wouldn't be relevant if my great aunt had died not long ago. We were very close, but she was a very hateful woman. We let the elderly get away with so much in terms of their prejudice, and we call them things like a product of their time and stuff like that. My great aunt, however, was an exception, because she was a woman from the tradition of Northern Irish sectarianism and British territorial racism. And sometimes when she spoke, I really did have to bite my tongue and tell myself, oh, she's old. Get over it, don't worry about it, she's not going to change. It's hell, go through it, etc. Because she doesn't know any better. To give an example, she left me a gollywog in her will. My experiences with this rage that I spoke of is part of a longer experience that I have been trying to decode for the last number of months. It didn't begin with my aunt's death, as I'm sure would be convenient. I was eager for the timings to line up to convince myself of a single reason. If I could believe in her ghost, even that would be slightly logical. I'd be close in my guess, but at the time I had no idea. I've rambled a bit, and I'm sorry for that. It's 3 a.m. and I can't sleep. I can't walk through that house. I'm writing this on my phone in our detached garage. I'm not afraid for my life, but I don't know if I should be. I'm getting ahead of myself. A week after my aunt's death, I left my teaching degree. Stress and grief had ruined my chances of passing this intensely difficult course. It was October, and now I was home all day. My mother worked on, and my father passed away 2 years ago, so I was often alone. Alone for so long, you could blame what I described as cabin fever. But I haven't been cooped up. My first worry came in the form of the moving shadows in the corner of my sight. We all see things, and to be honest, I blame my long fringe. However, after a light haircut, I no longer have this excuse. This only occurred in the house, usually upstairs and usually at night, but the shadow follows me everywhere in my home. While a reason to doubt my sanity, I was not expecting anything when the silhouette started to make noise. Not words, not evil, childlike whispering. It was the sound of feet shuffling. When I caught the shadow, I would see it move, accompanied by the shuffle of feet. This worried me. I seriously considered seeing a doctor. Maybe this year of stress and grief was too much. Honestly, I think whatever this was knew I made the appointment, because the day I did, the shadow left my side. A week passed without incident before I felt safe again. I began to forget the shadow and shuffling. To bolster my spirits, my mother, convinced that I was depressed, decided we should redecorate my room. Redecorating was fun, and nearly a full week since the appointment, I had forgotten about the shadow. I settled into bed, smell of paint lingering in the room as I tried to find sleep. I began to wake at 4:50 every morning without fail. Every time I checked my phone, and there it was, 4:50. Nothing was amiss that I could see, and I always returned quickly to sleep. This happened every morning for a week, maybe 6 days, before I began to get suspicious. I stay up late a lot, usually falling into bed up at 3 a.m. I was playing Fallout 4 and kind of lost track of time. Naturally, I was a little later in the sack. I checked my phone as I fell into bed and saw the time, 4:47. I recalled my nightly weakening. And decided to stay awake for the 13 minutes. God, I wish I hadn't. At 4:48, I heard shuffling near my door, which does not face my bed. You have to turn the corner after entering my room to look at me, to give you a sense of positioning. My heart began to race as I checked the time again, 4:49. I lay facing the door and fearing what was outside my door. My eyes were half shut when I saw them. 2 yellow eyes peering from the shadow twisted around the door. I clenched my eyes closed, praying it did not see me, praying I would be safe, because I don't believe in God. Then I heard the click of my door closing. I cautiously looked up, and it was gone. I checked the time. It was 4:50. If I'd seen this after waking, I would blame sleepy vision. But I hadn't been woken. I hadn't even been to sleep. And I assure you, it took me a great deal of time to get to sleep after that. Waking the next day, I recalled what I saw the night before. In truth, I got very little sleep. The shadow had returned, and the shufflings were adapting to my environment. By that I mean, in my kitchen I heard shuffling on the tiles. In the living room I heard shuffling on the carpet. It meant it was there. It was affecting its environment, which meant it could touch me. That was my fear. I had no intention of seeing it again. I didn't open my eyes when I woke at 4:50 that night. I knew it was gone. It always was by that time. I felt the rage, however, this uncontrollable hatred from nothing. I was so frustrated, I kicked the blanket across the room. But after doing so, I was bemused, lost as to why I've been so angry. I just sat in disbelief. I felt as though I didn't know myself. At this stage, 3 days ago, I was exhausted. I hadn't slept well in so long, and it was affecting my dreams. All I dreamt of, and still dream of, is a single field of grass, as far as can be seen. That's it. Nothing scary. But it felt like it was wrong. Like I was waiting for something or someone. Mum began to show concern. She said she was going to paint, and then I could sleep in her room. An offer I took with both hands. I slept from 9 a.m. to at least 7 p.m. I woke feeling refreshed, as if the past weeks had been nothing but a bad dream. To Mum's credit, she was still working on the room, so I showered in her ensuite. As I was drying my hair, much shorter, thankfully, I opened her large, mirrored, sliding wardrobe to get another towel, and I stopped in my tracks. I mentioned earlier that my father passed away. He was cremated, and I only say this because it means I knew what a box of ashes looked like. And there was one in my mother's wardrobe, and we buried my father's. I moved the papers on top of the box and saw the name. It was my great aunt. The feeling of anger overtook me. I slammed the wardrobe door and came face to face with my reflection. The anger on my face frightened me. It still does. The shock of the sight broke my anger. I just sat on my mother's bed, staring at myself for as long as I could before the woman herself came to investigate the noise. Without hesitation, I asked about the ashes. She inquired where I thought they'd be. She was right. My great aunt only had us. Naturally, we'd have her ashes. This didn't bring me any peace of mind, though. It hit me. The funeral had been 3 days after death, which meant the ashes have been in the house since the shadows began. A big leap, but I was willing to believe anything. The rest of the evening was spent in a mix of fear and hope. This was happening to me. I was a cynic, and something like this was actually happening to me. I hoped this was my aunt, reaching out from beyond. Actually, it's made me briefly happy. I loved my aunt deeply, and did this prove an afterlife? A promise of a connection in the living world? It honestly felt like a religious experience. I don't think my aunt is in those ashes anymore. I don't think she ever was. I think any hope I had is long gone. Whatever came in those ashes was not the woman I had known. I returned to my aunt's writings, which stopped after my uncle's death in 2000. In 2000. Only 6 entries exist after his death, and the difference in tone is staggering. I thought my aunt was hateful her whole life, but I feared it only began with her husband's death. She wrote she had been angry at God, with her friends, and with the world. Not uncommon for a widow, true. But the final entry remarked that 3 weeks on, she felt so angry, too angry in fact, to write, that she couldn't control her outbursts. And so she did stop writing. I wish she hadn't. This knowledge confirmed in my own mind that this all cannot be in my head. I don't know what it is or why it can invoke such anger in me, but I can't go back into the house. I can see the back door from here. Each time I look, I see it moving back from the door, back into the shadows. I think I'm losing my mind. Maybe to insanity or to it. That I simply do not know. I only wrote this down for my own peace of mind. It means someone, even a stranger on the internet, knows what is happening. At least, if something happens, people will know. I feel as though these are the ramblings of a madman. Maybe they are, but I will not go back into that house.